I want to start by saying a big thank you for making the time to join us. September is normally a time when we think about new beginnings, and as the new academic year starts, we begin to look forward. It almost goes without saying that this year is very different. What young people's futures hold is more uncertain than ever, and the need for what Street League do has never been greater. This promises to be a jam-packed 45 minutes, and we'll start by hearing from a leading think tank about the unemployment statistics we're all seeing on the news and find out what they really mean for young people. And then we'll hear directly from two young people being supported by Street League's different programs about their hopes and plans and their future.
Amazing. So we work with thousands of young people and we'll be meeting just a few of them today. So please bear in mind that they don't represent every young person we work with. They've all got their own story and their own journey to work. There is an opportunity for you to share your thoughts on what you hear and ask questions throughout this event. So there is a chat box for saying hi or sharing messages, and then there's a Q&A box for your questions if you'd like to ask any speakers something at the end of the event. If you're using the chat box, please remember to click on all panelists and attendees so that everyone can see your message. So I'm delighted to introduce Maya Gustafsson from the Resolution Foundation. Like Ruby said, an independent think tank focused on improving the living standards of those on low to middle incomes. So Maya is a researcher at the Resolution Foundation, and we're absolutely delighted that she's joined us today. So she can share what the research and stats are telling us about what the future holds for young people. Over to you, Maya.
Thanks very much. So I'm going to just share my screen so you can see some slides. Just 1 second. Right. So I want to talk to you about what the future holds for young people, and it's very tricky now because we've got the crisis, and this crisis is very special in that it's hitting a few sectors specifically, which young people work very much in. So I'm going to start by going through a bit about why this crisis is so hard hitting for young people, and then I'm going to go on to talk a little bit about people who leave education now and what the challenges are for those people, and how long this is going to go on for in the future. And then finally, I'm going to end on some of the things the government can do, some of the things they have done, and what the challenges are for going forward. So first off, looking at the sectors that have been hit by the crisis, especially by the shutdown measures that we've had, where retail, hospitality, shops and leisure organisations and activities have just completely shut down because of government advice. And that means that a lot of young people who work in these sectors, who tend to be overrepresented in these sectors, have been missing out. So you can see the blue line in this chart. Workers who work in shutdown sectors are overrepresented in the under 25 group. So that means that a lot of the under 25s have been especially hit by the crisis, and they've been furloughed, they've been unemployed, they've lost hours and pay so far. And as you can see as well, there is a contrast against the people that can work from home, so the people that are most likely to have been able to weather the crisis from the kitchen table, from the spare room, whatever kind of space you have at home to work from home. So that the people that can work from home tend to not be young people, so the very youngest, as you can see, they are the least likely to be able to work from home at all. Looking at some official figures from some administrative data, we can see who's been furloughed in the crisis. As you can see, both male and female workers who are young tend to have been most hit by having lost their job. And it's very good that they've been able to join the furlough scheme, the coronavirus job retention scheme, and then they will have retained some of the pay. But the challenge is then what happens when the job retention scheme, the furlough scheme, winds down, and how are these people, all of these young people, going to go into a job or go into some other form of activity, maybe going into training. So we need to make sure that these young people don't end up unemployed if their employer can't hire them back when the job retention scheme ends. Reflected in this, we know that young people tend to be, they tend to have lost their job, lost the hours, and this is reflected in who's been affected by pay reductions. So this data is from May, which is quite long ago now. We can only expect the same trend to have continued, but perhaps been kind of getting worse and worse as we go on. And as you can see, again, the 18 to 24-year-olds have been most likely to have seen less pay since the outbreak of the crisis, especially compared to the kind of the prime age years of 35 to 49. And these people are a bit more established in the labour market. They have more linkages. They probably have more kind of firm employment. We know that young people, especially young people who work in more insecure types of work with 0 hours contracts, in temporary work and agency work, they've been especially hit in this time. So when crisis hits, then those are the kind of workers that employers tend to let go first, and young people tend to work more than any other age group in those kind of contracts and in that kind of work. So this crisis has been a particular hit to the 18 to 24-year-olds especially. Moving on to education leavers, this is a very challenging time, not only for the people in work, but also for the people that are just about leaving education now, leaving some form of training. Because these people tend to have very little work experience compared to people who've been working for a long time. Weaker linkages with the labour market, they don't have as many contacts, it's hard to get a job with that experience anyway. But in a crisis, this becomes even harder. And we've seen vacancy rates go down. We've seen there's fewer jobs around for people to apply to. And so this chart shows, it's a bit confusing, but it shows the change in the chance of being employed. If we have people who leave education in a crisis compared to people who leave education not in a crisis. So we can see that so looking at the red line, that's the kind of the worst. It shows that people with lower level qualifications, they are having a particularly hard time after a crisis. People with degrees are more likely, they're also going to be hit by the unemployment following leaving education, but they see a recovery sooner. For people with lower level education, that's the red line. The impact of having left education in a crisis will be scarring them for a long time. So this is looking into 10 years into the future. We see that that's only at 10 years into the future will they have the same likelihood of having a job as someone who left education not in a crisis. So we could be looking at a 10-year period with a 10-year scarring effects for lower skilled people. And obviously that is a long time into the future. If you leave education at 18, that's, in your 30s, you might expect to have recovered. And it's after 5 years, only 6 people, so that's a 40% drop in the likelihood. So out of every 10 people that would have been employed if there hadn't been a crisis, only 6 of those would have been employed now. We can also look at the people that do find a job having left education in a crisis. What is the likelihood that they get paid the same as someone who left education not in a crisis? And again, the story looks worse for the people with lower level qualifications. So looking 3 years into the future from this crisis, we can see that lower level qualification leavers, they'll still see lower pay if they leave in a crisis compared to if they had left not in a crisis. So 5% less pay. If you get £10 an hour, you only get £9.50 if you left in a crisis 3 years ahead from now. So there will be long-term scarring for people who leave education now. And if you have, this does also hold for people who have a job but also then become unemployed, short spells when they are young. So if you have worked for a few years but then become unemployed, we also know that the likelihood of becoming unemployed later on in life is higher. So it's a bit hard to look into the future and say exactly what's going to happen. But on average, if there is a crisis early on in people's career, that means that there will be long-term employment and pay scarring. And this crisis is particularly special because we have the lockdown. So when people join, when people left education in the lockdown period that we have now in this crisis, we see that the lockdown sectors, the retail, hospitality, they tend to be the sectors that employ a lot of young people. So as you can see here, especially lower level qualification, people with low level qualifications tend to be in lockdown sectors when they first come into the labour market, and then the likelihood goes down as they kind of move on in the labour market. But in the very first few years, these sectors are so important, so that makes this crisis in particular so challenging for young people leaving education. And finally, this picture is even worse for women. So looking at lower level qualifications, women with lower qualifications, this dot, we can see that over 50% work in sectors like retail, hospitality, leisure, that have been completely down. There have been no jobs at all. And even now, when the economy is starting to open up, they won't be operating at full capacity, and we don't know when they will be operating at full capacity. So we're seeing challenges into the future. This crisis is so hard for young people, especially because of the way the economy is just completely shut down in the sectors that typically hire young people. And so what the economy needs to do, what the government needs to do to recover and make sure that the recovery period supports young people, is we need to focus on a sectoral support. So sectors that are struggling, they need to get extra support from the government. So that can be something like a cut in employer national insurance contributions for sectors like retail, hospitality, leisure, that have been struggling particularly in this crisis. We also saw yesterday the launch of the Kickstart programme for young people. So this is for people between 16 and 24, and they can get a six-month placement with an employer, and then they hopefully after that can get some experience and get a full-time role. But the problem with this is there are so many people in need, and it's challenging to get all the places going. So because the private sector is down, the sectors that typically hire a lot of young people, they are down to some extent. It's hard to find all the places needed. So this can't be the only thing the government does. It also needs to focus on creating jobs in sectors that need jobs, especially looking into the future, so in the green economy, for instance. That is a sector that really needs jobs and really needs kind of new innovation. One of those areas can be retrofitting properties to make them more eco-friendly. And this is something with quite low barriers to entry. A lot of young people can work in these sectors. It would be a good investment for the government. The last thing is, I would encourage all young people to go into education if you can, short-term training, doing a master's, doing a new level, doing any sort of courses, because it's a lot easier, we've seen, to weather the crisis in education, even if it's not the same kind of face-to-face interaction. But weathering the crisis in education, there is activity, there is upskilling, reskilling, and then entering the labour market when it's better, when it's come up, when the recovery started and there are more jobs around, because it's just so many young people around now looking for a job. And this is going to need a long-term, big-scale intervention from government. So that's quite a lot of information from me, but I'm going to hand over back to the chairs, and we can perhaps take questions at the end.
Yeah, huge thank you to Maya for that, and a virtual round of applause for sharing a great insight into unemployment statistics. It's a tough picture for young people, which we see every day here at Street League. Now you've heard the facts and the figures, we'd like to introduce you to some of the faces behind our young people. It's been a difficult time for young people, and Street League has a number of programmes which provide solutions to the current crisis and brings hope for their future. We're all going to be hearing from 3 different panels, each representing the different pillars of Street League's work to support young people. First up, we're going to hear about Street League's school programmes. The lovely Holly, who leads on one of our school programmes in Liverpool, will be joined by Lindsay, our Managing Director, who you all got to meet at the beginning of the webinar. As this week is the first week of new school, our young people are all extremely busy settling back into school, and none of them could sadly join us today. Instead, Lindsay will be asking Holly some questions about the programme and the benefits it has not only now but for the future. Here's Holly and Lindsay to tell us a bit more about how we're supporting young people in schools.
Thanks, Ruby. So Holly, as you touched on earlier in your introduction, obviously you work and deliver some of our programs at Street League, and particularly deliver our goal program, which is about supporting young women who are currently in school. So in terms of Street League school programs, what we're really aiming to do, and I mean, it becomes even more apparent that it's really important work at the moment from Maya's presentation, it is about that preventing youth unemployment and trying to help the successful transition out of school into work or further education and training. So Holly, can you just tell us a little bit about kind of some of the goal program activities and the young women that you're supporting?
Yeah, absolutely. So the GOAL programme is a full year female focused programme. It's delivered in schools and colleges to ages 14 to 19. The programme's aim is really to empower young women and allow them to achieve their goals. So on the GOAL programme, we deliver 4 modules called Be Yourself, Be Healthy, Be Empowered and Be Money Savvy. And within each module, it includes play-based activities. These can include sports activities, games, competitions, and then we also do group discussion, role play, question and answer, and loads more. So this supports the girls in gaining the skills that they might need to successfully feel confident throughout their own life journey or career paths for now and in the future.
Brilliant. And I mean, I think it's important to note, obviously GOAL was something we started piloting last year. It's our first year with support from Standard Chartered Bank and in partnership with Women Win. It's actually part of a global program of schools and girls empowerment delivery. Street League obviously delivers across Scotland and England, and we use it both as a recruitment opportunity, but as I say, also that prevention piece. So before GOAL, one of the things that you delivered was on our academies, helping young people who had left school, maybe not had the most successful transition. What do you think is the really kind of, I guess, most valuable piece of support that can be put into our school delivery to prevent that, you know, I guess, not an education, employment, training outcome from happening?
I suppose the GOAL programme can help with youth unemployment in loads of different ways. One being that the girls that have taken part have thoroughly enjoyed learning the subjects and relevant topics that they don't usually get to learn, you know, during the current curriculum. So the Year 11 girls that I've worked with closely on the last academy have explained to me that the programme really helped them find the strengths and how to use these in the best ability in order to feel sort of comfortable in uncomfortable situations, which will hopefully help them then in experiences and situations such as interviews, applying for jobs, things like that.
And I know you've developed some amazing relationships with the girls that you're supporting at the moment. And how do you think, or what have you heard from them about how they feel going back to school or coming back to school this week in the midst of COVID?
Yeah, well, the Year 11s are absolutely gutted. They couldn't complete the programme, obviously, due to coronavirus, but are absolutely made up that they can still sort of gain support from us at Street League with things like CV support, interview preparation, advice and guidance on mental health. The girls that I work with in Year 10 that are going back to school, so moving into Year 11, they've said they can't wait to see me, but are also sad that they aren't continuing with the second year of GOAL, which is great feedback for us, and it shows that we did our job and successfully. But obviously it's a shame that obviously we can't work with the same girls. The school and college liaisons that I work closely with are really excited to have us back in delivering the GOAL programme again, because they've expressed how much of a success it was last year.
Brilliant. Right, Holly, I know you've got lots of roles and activities that you're kind of taking us through today, so I will let you take us on to our next part of the programme.
Great. Cool. So we're going to hear from Mercy from London, who is currently on our academy programme for young people not in work, education or training. So Mercy is joined by Oyin, a member of our staff team in London. So over to you, Mercy and Oyin.
Hi everyone. Hi, hope you guys are having a good afternoon so far. So my name is Oyin. I am the Progressions Coach at Street League. So I run and manage employability sessions in our North London hub. We have 4 hubs across London: North, West, South and East. And of course we've been in lockdown, so physically meeting our young people in hub has changed so much. And actually we've been able to run amazing online provisions for young people. So this is from running functional skills, maths and English level 1 and 2 online, which has been incredible, to which Mercy got involved with, actually running our first ever fully funded creative summer program, and that's where we took on 10 young people who were not in education, employment or training, and gave them £250 towards a business plan or a course or a project that they want to use the money to help take it to the next level. It's been absolutely incredible. We just finished last week. We had our graduation and Mercy was on it. So hello, Mercy.
Hi.
Hi, Mercy. So do you want to tell everyone, I guess, why you decided to join us at Street League?
So I decided to join the Creative Summer Programme because, you know, it was for other young unemployed creatives, and I was looking to grow my small business, also learn some new skills. So like I mentioned, I was unemployed, and yeah, I was able to just explore different topics with Street League, like failure and resilience, business strategy and employability skills, which were really beneficial.
Great, thank you. So how did joining the Creative Summer Programme actually help you during lockdown at the peak of it?
Yeah, it gave me something to do, you know, like I said, I was unemployed, so it kept me busy, kept me doing something that was beneficial to me every day and to my business. So, you know, it helped me build confidence. It helped me with just day-to-day, the classes that were like coping with stress, failure and resilience. It just helped me with my day-to-day, as well as helping me with like my employability skills.
Great. So would you say that those are your takeaways from joining Street League over the past month?
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of my everyday life, just like coping with stress, especially during this time of COVID, I felt was very necessary. And also looking to find employment afterwards. So the business strategy and the get hired classes were also very beneficial because, you know, looking to improve and change my CV, I was able to do that. And also, just help with my interview skills so that when I do get an interview, I'll be able to take what I learned from Street League to that.
Awesome, thanks. So now that you've done the Creative Summer Programme, how do you feel better prepared for your future?
Definitely just having those new skills and being able to know what I should and should not do in interviews when I do get them. So yeah, definitely helping me with my employability after the program. So hopefully that will help me get a job soon.
Definitely. All right, so kind of like a last icebreaker at the end question. So if you're a Prime Minister, what would you do to support young people like you across the country?
Being a Black female in East London, I've just seen the difficulties of finding employment in general. So I would definitely create a scheme or a program that sort of fast-tracked minorities and those who are underrepresented to, you know, get them that chance to at least get an interview. So fast track them into creative roles, tech roles, whatever they would love to do as a career.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mercy. It's been such a pleasure working with you on the Creative Summer Programme. And I'm excited to see what the future holds for you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mercy and Oyin. I think it goes to show that everyone really appreciates you sharing the difficulties that you young people face, and that the aim of the programme and the incentives that you can offer really change a young person's brand, mental health and future career path. Amazing. Thank you. So next up, we're going somewhere a little bit different. So Brian, who works in our apprenticeships team, is at a Haven Holiday Park and is joined by Lewis, a young person who's got a job there when he completed our academy and is now on our apprenticeship programme, as well as Andy, who is a manager at Haven. So they're going to be sharing what apprenticeships offer both young people as well as employers. Over to you, Brian.
Thank you, Holly. Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Brian Lennox. I'm the Business Development Manager for our apprenticeship service at Street League. Coming to you live from Haven Holiday Park in Craigtara with one of our kind of main apprenticeship flagship employers. You know, I've got Andy Slavin here, who is our leisure manager, who has been fantastic for us, you know, across the past 2 years working in partnership with Street League. We will come to him a wee bit later on. However, I'll just give you a wee quick overview of the kind of, you know, our kind of a final pillar in terms of our support that we give young people. So you've heard about the school stuff, you've heard about the academy, you know, however, the journey about getting young people into employment doesn't stop there. For us, you know, it's great we get people into employment, but how do we go, you know, the extra mile in terms of in-work support? So our move into modern apprenticeships across the past couple of years has been massive for us, so that we can support young people to continue their learning development as and when they move into employment. You know, so you know, modern apprenticeships, what are they? You know, in essence, what they are. You know, we have young people who are currently be in employment just now, who, you know, who are maybe in entry-level jobs, who have aspirations, you know, to move up within their own company, or just bigger career aspirations, but don't necessarily have, you know, the level of attainment that supports, you know, their competency in terms of what they're doing on the job. So strictly what we can do is we can, you know, we can go in and we can offer, you know, kind of industry recognised qualifications, you know, based on what the job role is, you know, that then allows, you know, each candidate, you know, to kind of to be working in lifetime, carrying out their own day-to-day duties. We will come in and we will assess their job, that, you know, their competency carrying out those duties, and, you know, basically, you know, the end result for that will be that the guys will get, you know, the industry recognised qualification that matches their job competency, you know. And some of the areas that we've actually looked at of analysis across years in terms of our strictly young people is, where do they go, you know, and kind of you know, what are the main kind of sectors that, you know, that our young people may work in. And some of those key areas are kind of a customer service and business admin, leisure, warehousing, hospitality. So that, you know, so that's some of the main areas that are kind of young people will work in, and as such we've developed our apprenticeship offer to work alongside employers who have those type of, who work in those sectors and who have those type of jobs available. You know, as we'll come to with Andy in just a wee second, who'll tell you a wee bit more about the work we've been doing with him. We also, our aim was to have Lewis, who's one of our young people, who was on our sector-based academy, working in partnership with Haven. However, you know, due to staff shortages this morning, he's actually been called on to work in the kind of aerial assault. You know, he's been trained up for that specific area of work, so unfortunately he can't be with us just now. However, what Andy is going to do is give us a wee overview of Lewis's journey. Yeah, you know, given that he has been part of the kind of integration of the academy all the way through to kind of Lewis gaining the job and kind of moving on to his apprenticeship. Okay, so you know, just wrapping up before I hand over, in terms of apprenticeships, you know, as I say, you know, in terms of looking at and what support, you know, we have young people who maybe have aspirations, you know, to go to college. However, the reality is that sometimes they just need to go and work. We have young people who are maybe, who are not, you know, great academically, but are fantastic practically. You know, and in terms of looking at the kind of, you know, the government skills gap and the workforce moving forward, you know, apprenticeships are about trying to close that and kind of upskill our kind of a workforce of the future. You know, so that's the stuff that we're looking at just now. You know, we're really involved in that, from our young people moving into employers and getting apprenticeships, but also for, you know, young people aged 16 to 24 who are kind of in the workforce already and have aspirations. You know, we can offer these apprenticeships, you know, in those types of work. And again, if anybody would like to know more about that, you know, but please just get in touch with me, and I'm happy to kind of give some more information on that. But for now, what I'll do is I'll hand over to Andy, who will give you a wee overview of Lewis's journey, and from there, then I've got a couple of wee questions for Andy afterwards. So over to you, Andy.
Perfect. Hi everybody, I'm Andy. As Brian was saying there, with Lewis's situation, I was hoping to have Lewis here with me, because obviously who else can speak more for themselves than the man himself. But obviously due to situations, we've had to pull him and let him do what we employ him to do. Lewis's journey with us has been a strange one with the situation we're in right now. Normally he would just come in, be employed as work for us, like at this park in Ayr, like Craigtara, but with the situation we were under and all the leisure issues and stuff, we've had to help our kind of partner neighbouring parks down south in England. So Lewis's journey really went from, I seen him being part of the programme and he came here a couple of days a week before the initial interview stages. We employed him because it showed the attitude and the commitment to actually be what we want here, which what we call is a bright and breezy culture, where it's, you need to be, it's every guest every time, we call it. So you're greeting everybody, you're happy, you go lucky, you're just a genuinely smiley face character for them. So Lewis went through all that programme, came here, unfortunately only lasted really a week here before we all went on to furlough. And then he went down south to Mablethorpe, it's called, the park's called Golden Sands, and they recently got it's what we call a Park of the Future. So they got a brand new development there. So as a new instructor, it was really like I've been away myself when I was an instructor, and it being away and seeing the difference between working at Craigtara and working at Mablethorpe, it's kind of going like big leagues to smaller leagues. It's like a different kind of situation for him. But the glowing records, he was in the Haven newsletter, pictured down there talking about the brand new development. Everybody speaks about Lewis and how his general attitude and his commitment to work, which I partly take the credit for it myself for how I train my guys, but I take it from the way that the Street League team work and how they've developed the guys into, like, the sector programme was actually designed, Lewis's Academy was actually designed towards coming to work in the leisure industry for us, and I kind of made it my mission to make sure that it was 100% success rate, which we did get 100% success rate out of that academy, where if they didn't work for leisure, although 75% of them did, the other ones did find themselves employment on our park.
Fantastic, Andy. Thanks for that wee overview there. Just a couple of questions for you quickly, just before we wrap up. So, kind of, you've explained us that you're the leisure manager, you mentored the guys and stuff like that as well. I think we've seen it for sale. It's been fantastic. What are the benefits that you guys have seen from the apprenticeship programme and working in partnership with Street League, as in from an employer perspective?
I think the benefits we've seen is obviously we're a seasonal workplace, so we're employing every year, and it's like we're letting people apply for the jobs, and we don't really know much about them until they turn up on the assessment day. Whereas when we worked alongside Street League, they were in once a week. I was in regular contact with Street League. I was seeing the guys who were coming forward for the assessment day before I was even properly assessing them. So we're kind of preparing them to come and work for us before we'd even offered them a job. So, and having that sort of partnership, one, helps our employment for already at the start of the year, because as unseasonal, it's not really ideal for everybody. I mean, myself, I only really planned on being here a year, and I'm here 6 years later. But it's the partnership helps us with the influx employment at the start of the year, because we've got a swimming pool here that needs 25 lifeguards on a daily basis. It's not easy to find 25 people out there who are competent enough as lifeguards. But having a partnership with yourselves, with Street League, who are in a leisure in the leisure industry in a sort of way, brings that forward. And I think the biggest thing we've got is retention, is going alongside that. We're retaining team more because of the work alongside yourselves and obviously introducing the modern apprenticeship as well.
Fantastic, Andy. And just finally, just before we wrap up, what would you say to other employers thinking about apprenticeships in terms of bringing staff in and upskilling? What would you say to other employers about the benefit of that?
I would say go for it. Like, when I was that age, I didn't really know about apprenticeships. If I knew about this, and I probably would have jumped on it Street League when I was younger. But it's, basically just go for it. That's how I would say it. Just get on it.
Great, thanks very much, Andy. That's from us, and I'll hand you back over to Ruby.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. A big thank you to Andy and Brian there for sharing their insights. It was really great to hear the succession story of the sector-based apprenticeship and how the modern apprenticeships are going. And also thank you to everybody who shared the questions for our speakers, either ahead of today or in the chat box. I'm now going to hand you over to Linda, who has a list of questions for us to quiz our speakers with.
Thanks, Ruby. And I think the panelists are all going to magically reappear for us. First of all, thank you to everyone who's joined, all of the speakers who have shared amazing insight, experiences, ideas and recommendations. And thank you to all the attendees who have been sending through all of these great questions that I've got in front of me now. Just as a point of addressing one question, which is we will be sharing the presentation and slides with you afterwards. So don't worry if you didn't catch all of the amazing information and statistics that have been shared, then you can watch it back and look at those. And I think just coming to you first, Maya, if that's all right. Obviously, in one of the areas, it was interesting to see that there had actually been an income rise. Do you know which sectors those young people are working in?
So for the difference in pay since the beginning of the crisis, yes, it's hard to say. We don't really know where those people are working, what kind of jobs they're working in, but we can say a little bit about kind of what might be expected in normal times. So we know that young people in the early 20s, in the kind of later teens, they will see a lot of very fast pay increases typically, and they will get promoted quite quickly. And that is a time where most people in normal times get pay rises and just like kind of climbing the ladder. So to not see that is a bad sign in itself, but to see a little bit of pay rises, that could actually be expected even in times of crisis. We have also seen that some young people have been moving jobs more during the crisis compared to other age groups. So it could be that people are kind of swapping into a higher paid job as well. But this is kind of speculation, so I don't know exactly where they're working. But as we have seen that some sectors have actually done quite well in the crisis, especially jobs we can work from home. If you have an office job, we can do some bits. And if you work in sectors that haven't been completely shut down. So for instance, construction is the typical one where people have been able to go out and do some work outside the home, but they haven't been in a sector that's completely shut down. Yes, it's been affected by the crisis and by all the measures, but it's perhaps one of the less affected sectors. So it's hard to say where exactly these people work, but it's not been terrible for everyone. But overall, this group would have seen fast increases in pay, and they haven't. Most people just haven't seen those. But we would expect this group to see higher, more pay increases than any other age group in normal times.
Perfect. Thanks, Maya. And actually what you comment on there picks up on a lot of the questions, which is about adapting and moving quickly and, you know, just the changing circumstances of the crisis itself and then over the past several months. And one of the questions, Mercy, is for you in terms of, you know, since COVID and coronavirus, how has that changed your plans for the future is the first part of my question. And the second part of the question is, how are you going to spend the funding that you secured through the Creative Summer Programme?
Okay, thank you. So since COVID, it has definitely been more difficult. I think in general, it's been hard applying for jobs and trying to find a role. But obviously with COVID, I've just seen like less jobs or less of the jobs that I'm trying to apply for, or even try and get in interviews has been more difficult due to COVID. But going forward, I'm just going to carry on obviously applying, and just looking for creative jobs and looking into what I want to do in the future. And with the Street League Fund, I've actually wanted to get a camera for over a year now. So I'm able to do that with the Street League Fund and just grow my platform, grow my social media brand with that fund. So that's really exciting to finally do.
Brilliant. Well, I hope everyone who is attending today's session is following you on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you are social media wise. And I'm sure we can include those details in our follow-up email list to everyone as well. A little bit of free promotion, always helpful. And my next question is moving to you, Owen, in terms of, again, this piece around how have people adapted, how have things changed for us? And one of the attendees is interested to hear about how has Street League adapted and changed to respond to obviously working from home, not delivering in our usual academy settings. Yeah, just tell us a bit about how things have been different for you and the team.
I think people will be surprised to hear that we've actually been able to work with so many young people, and actually, though things have looked differently physically, we've actually been able to reach like a wider range of young people because they don't have to travel into meeting me in our hub in King's Cross. I get phone calls and emails, and like I said before, we've been able to run a functional skills qualification, and as you know, it's so important right now that these young people are getting their functional skills level 1 and level 2, especially now where qualifications is even more important. And now I can work with someone who lives in East London. I can work with someone who lives in Kent, because all I got to do is sign them onto sign them onto our online platform and refer them over to the functional skills, trying to use my voice, and send them over to all the functional skills platforms that we have. And like we said, we've not, it's not stopped anything. It's actually been able to birth a lot of things, like the Creative Summer Programme. We've got young people who, you know, probably wouldn't have been able to come in and meet me, but are able now to get funding for a project or build up their confidence. So yes, in the beginning it was like, how are we going to work with young people? But literally like the second, third week in, it was incredible just actually how much we were able to do and how much we're able to do it online. And that's something that we're going to continue doing, just because we're able to reach so many more young people remotely and also then go back into Hub and work with them face to face. So it was a big change, but I think I don't know the stats, but we've made great impact. It's been an amazing 5 months, which isn't always easy to say in the fact they've been in a global pandemic. So to say that we've been able to change lives and help people has been a real privilege. So yeah.
Thank you, Owen. And I mean, it's a credit to you and, you know, the wider team and the young people as well, in terms of, you know, how well people have engaged. And I think Street League's also been really fortunate that we had funders and supporters who also responded quickly, and they were flexible and they listened to what we were sharing in terms of the experiences of young people, be that providing food vouchers or digital vouchers, data access, you know, laptops and all types of different things. So I think it's been a really amazing collective effort. And I think that collective effort is probably what we also need to see for the foreseeable future, as we keep kind of tackling the crisis and the aftershocks and the continued challenges of the crisis, as Maya described. And I think it's, you know, something for us all to be really mindful of, that 10-year, you know, time gap or delay potentially for us to get things equal again. And, you know, Mercy, as you picked up on earlier in terms of your excellent recommendation to the Prime Minister, actually before COVID, things weren't equal. You know, we were already tackling at Street League huge inequality, and that was our day-to-day job. And that's, you know, arguably become even more important and possibly more difficult. But I think there's a lot of excellent people at Street League and in the sector as a whole who will ensure that happens. And one of the questions, just to pick up before we thank everyone, is around the Kickstart scheme, which was obviously announced yesterday. And the detail is still to come through, I think, in terms of exactly how that's going to work, particularly for employers who have fewer than 30 placements to secure. But Street League is proactively looking at and wanting to work with employers, especially, you know, SMEs and maybe those who can't directly access that opportunity through DWP. So we will definitely be in touch with you. And so on that note, and running just a little bit behind schedule, but thank you for everyone for staying. I just wanted to say thank you so very much to all of the attendees. Thank you to all of our panelists, all of the young people, all of the staff, Maya for joining us, Andy as well. and as well for the kind of support in the back room area in terms of our tech and logistics. For all of the attendees, just to say that we will definitely be in touch with each and every one of you, and hopefully there is a way for us to collectively tackle this crisis that's emerging, reduce that 10-year gap before things become more equal. And I have nothing left to say now, but thank you very much. Have a good rest of the afternoon and take care. Thanks all.